Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the summer exhibition of the New Mexico Forensics Club. We are an academic speech and debate club geared toward the Christian homeschool community in town, while at the same time being open to participants in any educational setting and from any faith background. My name is Jason Gates, and I'm both the head coach of our little club and your master of ceremonies for the evening. I want to start our time together tonight by taking us back to the Watergate scandal of the early 1970s. And for the younger members of our audience who may not know the details, this was a situation where Republican President Richard Nixon and members of his administration were investigated for first orchestrating and then covering up a break-in at the headquarters of the Democrat National Committee in Washington, D.C. Ultimately, the investigation led to the president's resignation, and many of the accused served federal prison terms. And one of those who did was a man named Charles, a lawyer, political advisor, and special counsel to the president. He was known as Nixon's hatchet man for his willingness to do whatever was necessary. When facing jail time, a close friend of his actually gave him a copy of Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And in reading through it, becoming convinced by the arguments, he became a Christian. He then went on to become one of the most foremost advocates of worldview training of the last century. You might know this man better by the name of Chuck Colson. I tell you that little story so I can share a quote of his with you. Ideas have consequences. Bad ideas have victims. There are a lot of bad ideas floating around the world today. You are nothing more than a collection of atoms. Your thoughts, no more than chemical reactions in your head. The highest value you could possibly pursue in life is your own happiness. The social institutions of the world are fundamentally inequitable and must be reformed. And if we would only do that, we could finally rid ourselves of war, famine, disease, crime. These bad ideas have been festering for centuries. Indeed, some of them trace their roots all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Perhaps now some of their consequences are becoming more readily apparent. But what do we do about them? How do we combat bad ideas? We train you to think critically, to research, analyze, and draw well-reasoned conclusions. We train you to ask probing questions, to dig beneath the surface, and to naturally view problems from multiple perspectives. We teach logic and philosophy, both how to use them well and how to recognize when others don't. And when you thoroughly understand what it is you believe and why, we help you to communicate those beliefs in an eloquent, effective, winsome, and gracious manner. We help you to connect with an audience and evoke a response, passionately persuading people and motivating them to action. This is what the New Mexico Forensics Club is all about. But how do we do all that? Well, through participation in 4 broad categories of events. The first category contains what are known as platform speeches. These are probably what come to mind when you think of public speaking. It's a valedictory address, a sermon, a TED Talk, or more or less what I'm doing right now. They're speeches that are prepared well in advance, and they help you to organize your thoughts and convey them in a compelling manner. While these platform speeches are prepared well ahead of time, limited preparation speeches help you to do all that, but more on the spur of the moment. You may be tackling some question from current events, perhaps diving into a topic in the realm of apologetics, or even analyzing something from popular culture from a worldview perspective. And depending on the event, you may have as long as a half an hour or as short as just a few minutes to get your thoughts together and then start talking. Leaving aside these more formal speeches, there's also a category known as interpretations. And this is where you really get to stretch your acting muscles, learn how to connect with an audience using both humor and drama. This is where you learn to develop your own interpretation of one or more pieces of published literature. And depending on the event, you may be acting out a number of parts all by yourself or perhaps with a partner. And then finally, there are the debates, where 2 or more individuals clash over some topic, some resolution. Now that topic to be argued is set well in advance, but you don't actually know until you get into the debate which side you're going to be arguing. That means you need to prepare compelling, constructive arguments and rebuttals on both sides of the issue and be able to support everything you say with a mountain of evidence. Now, if all of this sounds like a rousing good time to you, then perhaps you should join us. Our weekly classes, which will pick up again actually in August, they consist of time spent in worldview analysis, some amount of topical training, and then, as our kids can tell you, plenty of time practicing. Alternatively, if as I've been talking you've been thinking, oh shoot, I know someone who could really benefit from this, by all means, send them our way. The more the merrier. We have our refreshments over at the side. You'll also notice there's a stack of business cards there. Feel free to grab a handful and hand them out to folks. Now, you guys ready? Time for the festivities to begin. Tonight, you'll be watching a number of performances that our members have been preparing over the course of the year. The first one is what's known as a prose interpretation, where a performer takes a piece of literature, picks and chooses different bits of it to craft a compelling narrative, and then delivers that as a storyteller. So, without further ado, we have Miss Analia Morlang and the Magician's Nephew.